Welcome to the latest edition of Anyone, Anywhere, Anytime with me, Marshan Kenny. Well, before I get started, let me tell you something first. Most people in the Southern Miss world that know me know they're in a more positive guy who bleeds black and gold more than I do. I mean, just look at my social media on how much I love Southern Miss. I've made it a point to put it on my shoulders to be a former player, to be a driving force, to try to pump some energy as much as I can into this fan base and into this great Golden Eagle nation. So I went to the Rock on Saturday with my wife for a heated rivalry, what I thought I'd see to keep the bell in Hattiesburg and to keep it at the Rock against Tulane. But I tell you what, from the start to the finish, I couldn't have come away more disappointed, unfortunately. It started when I walked in the stadium in the first quarter, and we've got a half-empty stadium for what I saw as the marquee game on the schedule against Tulane, and the only rival that we have with a trophy associated with it, with the bell. And that's a problem in a half-empty stadium like that, in a game like that. We got to pump some energy into this program pretty dang fast, and I'm to the point I really don't care where it comes from, but something's wrong with a half-empty stadium on a game like that. And then I'm speaking for a lot of people because we are too talented of a football team. We have the talent that I thought at the beginning of the season could win the Sun Belt, but I came away from that game, and once again, speaking for a lot of people, I wasn't highly entertained. I didn't see mean in your face football. I didn't see that Southern Miss grit, and walked out of that stadium. It just wasn't what I expected. But let me give you an example real quick on how fast you can invigorate a fan base. After the game, we went over to 4th Street Bar and Grill to watch Colorado and Colorado State because I'm pretty invigorated on what Coach Prime has done at Colorado and how he's energized this Colorado fan base. So I'll go to watch this Colorado State game, and Colorado State's a huge underdog. But by the end of the game, I am a huge Colorado State fan, and I'm not even watching what Colorado's doing. Because what I saw from a huge underdog in CSU, I saw players flying around like their life depended on it. I saw saltiness, meanness. I saw a bar full of people in there like, wow, this is great. I saw a head coach screaming across the field at Coach Prime and that Colorado squad with some choice 4-letter words after his first touchdown, and that just set the tone for the rest of the game. Came out of that game being a big Colorado State fan all of a sudden, and I can't explain it because I didn't care about Colorado State to walk into that game. But the point is, you can pump energy with a product pretty fast, and it can happen this Saturday in Jonesboro, Arkansas, where if you ask me, we're a much better team on paper. And if you go there and I'm talking to the players right now, anybody watching, or feel free to spread the message. Players, if you treat every play like it's your last, if you play every play almost like your lives depended on it, and win or lose the score, that's not the point of what's going on with Southern Miss football. I lost some games. We lost some games back in the day. But if you play like you're coming through the TV with energy, you'll come back to the Rock and you'll see a different environment pretty dang fast from the fans. So that's my 2 bits for the day, and we just got to pump some energy in this program pretty fast. So speaking of Sun Belt play, I thought it a perfect time with what we've seen on the field so far this year on predictions on how we'll do in the SBC. On social media this week, I asked everyone, based on what they've seen from Southern Miss football so far this year, what's the prediction in the Sun Belt Conference? I had a lot of great comments. Feel free to go on Twitter and read those comments, but I can only get to 4 because that's the name of the segment, 4 and out. First up, Reagan Grant, who's really passionate about Southern Miss football. He says, based on what I've seen so far, 3 wins. Hoping to issue a public apology for this tweet at the end of the season, but can't win games with an offense that isn't sniffing the top 100. Danny Carter next said, 4 games max. It's time to quit using words, great practice. This is a good team. He says it's time to attack, attack, attack. Fire in the belly these guys need to get. Quit the talk, start the winning walk. Next up, Golden Eagle says, I have us at 4 wins simply because it seems most of the teams in the conference have gotten better. We, on the other hand, have not. And then finally, Jay Kess says 2 to 3 wins. We have a tough schedule. Arkansas State isn't going to be a cakewalk. And then we go play Texas State, who just hung 77 on Jackson State. We have regressed, and it's sad, man. I'm tired. Thank you for the comments, and please keep them coming in, everybody. Well, today's interview is with a guy who probably couldn't have been any tougher at the quarterback position, because I read so many times he had a linebacker mentality, who happened to be playing the quarterback position. So with all that said, here comes another fan favorite, former Southern Miss and pro quarterback, Dustin Almond. Today's interview is with a guy who was a 4-year starter at quarterback at Southern Miss, and by the time he was done, he was second all-time in passing yards, second all-time in touchdowns. So with all that said, I'm bringing you the one and only Dustin Almond. How you doing, Dustin?
Good, Marshan. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm great, man. And one thing I love about you, you know me, I'm an old school ex-linebacker, and I've heard about you so many times. You were a linebacker mentality guy playing quarterback. Where'd you get that toughness from, Dustin?
Well, first of all, my dad, you know, he used the belt on me several times, so that was kind of a lesson learned. But, you know, and it kind of carried over to the football field. I had a great, you know, I go back to high school, and I was a sophomore. And at that time, a senior was a starter, and we ran the midline and triple option. You know, it was kind of one of our coaches had come from Georgia Southern and put that into our offense. And here I am watching this guy that's 5'10", and I'm telling you, he was taking a pounding and a pounding, and he always got back up and always got back in. And as a sophomore, I'm like, all right, so that's how you play the position. And, you know, I kind of carried it on from there, and that guy would come with, you know, the bruise across your head, and, I mean, just limping off the field, and that guy never came out. And I was like, all right, that's the guy I want to be. And it kind of just went on from there.
Oh, yeah. No one ever questioned your toughness. And but you came from a great football family. Talk about your bloodline a little bit.
So it started with my dad. My dad went to Northwestern, you know, a small kid out of Bossier City. Of course, you know, he was in the limelight there, went to Northwestern, had a Hall of Fame career there at Northwestern. And in, you know, 1979 went on with the Steelers as Mr. Irrelevant. You know, so I got to hear those stories, you know, his parade there in California and all that. So, you know, I kind of grew up with the last name Almond on my back there in a small time in Bossier. And of course, you know, I was trying to live up to that expectations of my dad. You know, he played receiver. I got to play quarterback. My oldest nephew played quarterback at Northwestern. So he carried on the family tradition. And now we have a defensive player in the family who's playing at ULL. And just loving it. And, of course, we all trash talk, you know, so it's fun now that we have a guy on the defensive side of the ball that we can really kind of rib.
Oh, that's awesome right there. Before we get into your awesome high school career, you had to move around a lot before high school. I mean, you didn't really stay in one place. I learned about that. Tell me about that story growing up.
So growing up, I was born in Bossier City, Louisiana. And if you don't know where Bossier City, Louisiana, you know, easy spot, Shreveport, Louisiana is kind of where we tell everyone. You know, I grew up there playing all kinds of sports. We moved to Houston, Texas for a year. And at that time I was 9. Lived there for a year, moved up to Janesville, Wisconsin. If you don't know where that is, it's pretty much at the bottom of Wisconsin. So, you know, had the culture shock of Louisiana, Texas. Now I'm in Wisconsin. And again, Janesville, Wisconsin, you may have to Google that because that is, I mean, I don't think you're going to find it on the map. And then, you know, moved down to Jacksonville, Florida, which I started my 6th grade of, you know, that time was elementary. And then I went to junior high and high school there in Orange Park. And that's kind of where my football career really started.
Yeah, and you had a huge career in high school at Orange Park. I mean, talk about the high school days where you became one of the better players in the entire state of Florida.
Well, you know, they yelled Duval. That's the big thing that I grew up having to hear Duval. And, of course, you know, Orange Park is a little suburb outside of Jacksonville. So, you know, we try to play those Jacksonville schools and kind of prove a point. But, you know, growing up, and I think you probably relate, you know, it's all the coaches that you're around. What coaches really took you under their wing and what did they do for you in your life? And, man, I was real fortunate. I came in to Orange Park Junior High and my coach, or at Orange Park Junior High, I had two great junior high coaches, and they believed in mental toughness, and they pushed us every day to believe that nothing can really stop you. And those two guys to this day, we still communicate. And then I moved up to high school, and my coach at that time, Coach Shields, he was my sophomore junior year, and we were running the midline and triple option. So that's kind of where I became more of a mobile quarterback. And like I said, toughness. I mean, running the midline, you're reading the shade and busting up into the outside linebacker. So that was I learned real quick how to take a hit, how to give a hit, how to avoid a hit. So that kind of, my lesson there was how to run the football. And then my senior year, Ron McCrone, who ended up coming to Southern Miss later on in my career, was my head coach. And his son was Jeff McCrone. Jeff was a quarterback there at Florida State for a while, and then he kind of transferred out. But that was really my coaching career. And then, I say my, the village to raise a quarterback, that was kind of my village. And then I had a baseball coach at the time, Coach Link, who pushed me, and he was a quarterback coach for me there for the first couple of years, but he pushed me and pushed me and pushed me. And there was one story with Coach Link and Coach Shields. I was running stadiums, and I went to that last step, and instead of fully getting on that last step, I just put my foot up there and walked down. But needless to say, that was the last time I ever did that. The coaches called me over, and they're like, look, just when you think somebody's not looking, that's when they're looking the most. And I kind of learned that at that point, and I promise you, I finished every stadium after that, and then, of course, carried it on my career.
Oh, yeah, tremendous work ethic right there from a young age, and like I said, you had a hell of a high school run, and you became a big recruit, and you had 3 offers that you kind of narrowed it down to thinking of college. It was Louisville, Mississippi State, and Southern Miss. How did you wind up at Southern Miss, and why did you choose the Golden Eagles?
And I was thinking, of course, I've always thought, like, how did I get here? What did I end up doing? And, I went on my visits. I went to Mississippi State. I went to Southern Miss, and, of course, visiting Louisville. You kind of look at the stadiums, and of course, the Rock is definitely different than all of them. It's probably one of the smallest, but at the same time, like, you just felt the tradition when you walked in there. If that, of course, you played, so the tradition. But growing up, Saturday we were either playing, football or playing baseball or basketball. After that, we were going straight to the woods and hunting Saturday and Sunday. Then we're back, watching the Cowboys on Sunday. So I really never had a chance to really follow college football because I was always playing ball. And of course, back then it was the fatback TVs that you may have 4 channels that you can watch. So I just kind of fell in love. And what really sold me was the tradition and, of course, the all black. The all black makes a statement, and that was the statement I wanted to make at that point. But I really enjoyed the coaching staff at that time. Coach Klanakis was the offensive coordinator, and then we went into Coach Petrino. Coach Petrino was the quarterback at that time, and he was recruiting me. His brother was there at Jacksonville, so he was always in the Orange Park area. And I mean, he was showing up to baseball games. He was calling me. He was showing me the love that you want. And and I said, let's do this thing. And there I was at Southern Miss.
Heck yeah, what a perfect fit. And we're going to get into some of your career stories while you see it was a perfect fit. But you redshirted that first year, and a kind of cool thing, you had a guy really to kind of learn the ropes a little bit more in the college world with Jeff Kelly being the mainstay at quarterback. Talk about that redshirt year and the relationship that you and Jeff built.
Man, so I came into school, and I don't know if Jeff had got married that summer or what the story was. So I kind of came in under Zach White was my big brother at the time who did the recruiting. And then I got to meet Jeff. And, of course, Jeff, a good old country boy from Alabama, I was like, all right, you hunt, you fish, you play golf. I'm pretty sure we can get along. And of course, to see that, you have Lee Roberts, that mold, and then you have the mold of Jeff Kelly. And it's like, all right, here's my chance. And, to watch Jeff Kelly, smart guy. I got to hear y'all's interview, and just a bright guy. But, most of all, one of the truest people I've ever been around. And I love that aspect of him and just kind of watched him. And I got to hear about his 400-yard game against Tulane. And, of course, he ran off. And I'm so excited. And he goes, man, just let that one stand for a little while, in terms of record. And, of course, I never touched it, thank God. But I just thought that was so awesome of him and just what he thought of me.
Oh, yeah, Jeff was such a stand-up guy, great Golden Eagle, just like you. But it was your time. So get into your freshman year, your redshirt freshman year, we're 6 game ins. You didn't get the start to start the season, but they see the potential in you. And so we're at South Florida in game 6, and you enter the game and you don't look back. I mean, you have a great game, throw for over 200 yards and a touchdown. We don't get the win, but man, you definitely made a stamp like we got a guy now. How was that first game on the road too?
Man, it was, we talk about the Southern tradition, and of course we went to Southern Miss to prove a point, whether I wasn't good enough or you overlooked me. Well, that was one thing I was not offered from anybody in Florida. So for me to go back and play in Tampa against South Florida, I had a point to prove. But of course, the offensive lineman at the time, Jeremy Bridges, Jim Hicks was at center at the time, which made my life a lot easier. We had Leroy, and of course in the backfield at that time, I had the baby bull. I mean, that took a lot of pressure off me. But man, I just felt like I fit in with those guys and just had that same swagger about them, and I tried to live that through every play.
Ooh, there was such a swagger with some of the guys you named right there, man. Just the toughest of tough guys, just like you. But next week, hosting Cincinnati at The Rock, you're the starter. How was game week? And also learn you had a famous Golden Eagle talk to you pregame to kind of get you more fired up. Tell me about that story.
Well, I took a lot of confidence coming out of South Florida. I know we didn't win. We got down, in that last 2-minute drill, got down there, missed the field goal to tie it up. So, I felt like we were close. And then, of course, coming in and preparing for a start is completely different in my eyes, versus being a backup. And, man, it was just like Favre said, take you to that story. So I go into the training room, and Matt's there at the time, and he goes, "Hey, there's a guy in there. Why don't you go talk to him?" I was like, "Well, who is he?" He goes, "Just go in the Swim-X and you'll see it." So I walked in there, and I'm, Favre is running in the Swim-X. I'm like, all right. So, man, Matt wanted me to come in here and talk to you. I didn't know how to approach the guy. But I said, I got to start this weekend. Any words of advice or anything? He said, I don't even remember my first start. He goes, but I can just tell you this, just go out, throw it, and have fun. And, of course, that's what I did. I think we opened up on a opening drive, 80-yard touchdown to Marvin down the seam. And, of course, that was an easy way to start the game and to start my career at that point. My first start, I was feeling it.
Yeah, and there's a theme of winning. You win that first game, and you win throughout your career against Cincinnati and wound up having a winning season, continue those winning ways under Coach Bauer, and takes you to the Houston Bowl, which is a really cool game. I happened to be living in Houston at the time, went to the game. I mean, it's an NFL arena, Reliant Stadium. How cool was that? A bowl game in a big NFL stadium. It gets a big-name team, Oklahoma State.
Man, that was awesome. That was awesome. I believe that was the first year that Reliant was open. But, of course, just that atmosphere. I mean, playing Oklahoma State, and I think that was their first bowl game in however many years. That place was rocking with Oklahoma State fans. And, of course, Southern Miss showed up and showed out. I mean, we had a great game. I did start that game. I kind of came off a sprained MCL versus UAB and kind of got back. I know Mickey at that time had his ribs were hurt or something. But anyway, I go in, it's 10-0 at that time, and just kind of took over from there. That was one of the most memorable games at that point. Of course, it was on ESPN, just felt the love. But, man, I tell you, riding home, because at that point I went to Dallas after that game. I had never been so banged up and beat up, and it was brutal. It was a brutal game, but, again, man, we had fun as a team, and we just fell short, which, left that taste in our mouth going into the next year.
Yeah, but next year, I mean, your sophomore year, 2003, a really great moment, but a lot of big wins. But I want to ask you about something, because the Nasty Bunch was kind of a violent group back then, a vicious group. And the guys you had to practice against, for example, were NFL guys like Rod Davis and Michael Boley. How was that practicing against the Nasty Bunch at that time?
Well, I'll tell you what, coming into, 01, my redshirt year, that was the best thing for me, of course, to sit behind Jeff Kelly and to go up against this defense. Well, that defense at that time was led by Chad Williams. And, of course, you got the Playboy All-American. Chad Williams. Just those two. And, yeah, you had those two, but you had Coach Nix there too. He was the one that if you run the wrong play, if you mess up and throw it to the wrong guy, well, let me tell you something. Coach Nix was he was not going to let you live that down, and you were certainly going to pay for it. But Man, no, that honestly, that first year under that defense and playing against those guys, that's what made me kind of realize what Southern Miss football is, and just it started from y'all carrying it down that tradition, and just to see that defense continue to take over that, and just to live that and help, keep that accountability. I was like, all right, I'm where I need to be. But that made it, ones on ones. Oh hell yeah, that was something I wanted to do every day. I wanted to play the best, and yeah, they made us better, and there was a lot of fights, but at the same time, we got each other better.
Oh yeah, that's why you put up so many big stats, because the guys you were practicing against. I mean, practice was about as tough as anything, man. But and looking at that schedule in your sophomore year, there was one game you might have looked at. It's kind of like, look at this one, and not putting words in your mouth, but Nebraska's coming in town on prime time ESPN. I mean, that's a big deal. I know we didn't get the win, but when you got a big traditional name like Nebraska, what's the Rock vibe like, and what's the night like?
Oh man, the vibe was awesome. They brought in the bleachers in the end zone. Of course, the place was packed, sold out. And as a young kid, I think 19, 20 years old, seeing all this hype, right? And that was one of the biggest games I've ever played in up until that point. And I kind of thought back, I had a terrible game. I think I had 5 turnovers, if not 6 turnovers. But it was just like, okay, that moment was bigger than I was at that time. And, I kind of let it get to me, which was a very humbling experience at that time. And after that game, my career kind of took off from there, because I did learn from it. I was embarrassed. I ended up sitting on the bench the next week, and, I got my opportunity to come back in, and it was just like, all right, no more. The moment's not going to be too big for anymore. I'm going to try to be too big for that moment.
Oh, yeah, and then y'all got way too big for any kind of moment like that with another game coming up, which to me, I'm a little jealous of not ever playing in a game like this. I told Rod Davis the same thing. It is the greatest game in the history of the Rock. Top 10 TCU, undefeated, primetime ESPN once again. I mean, walk me through that week, knowing the Conference USA Championship's on the line, the hype, knowing the fans are just jacked up. What was it like game week leading up to that?
Well, we just came off a big win with Tulane. That was the week that I had just lost my grandfather. So going into the TCU game, there was, of course, this moment, right? This moment that I've been in and I've already been part of against the Nebraska game, and kind of fumbled that, per se. And now here I am coming into TCU. And as you know, when you play at the Rock, man, your opponent doesn't have a face at that point, especially if it's a big game. Hell yeah, let's go. And, man, it was just kind of that little dew on the grass, the cannon, the smoke in the air, and of course your student section. I think that's what really gets the Rock going, is when that student section is packed. And that night, man, it was one of those nights. And of course, first play of the game, we come out, run a double move. We're typically on my double move. I'm going to kind of fake pump it to the sideline to try to get the field safety to kind of roll that way, right? And, pumped it to him, and I went back to the field with Marvin Young. And something out of my eye just caught me, and that corner had slipped to the field. I don't know what brought it up or just how it happened. And, of course, I stepped up in the pocket, went back that way. Deron Lawrence was wide open, corners on the ground, was scored a touchdown. And that was the open up the TCU game. And, of course, from there, I mean, it just got more and more hype, and it was on.
Oh, man, was it on? And anything you say you might not have done well against Nebraska, you did right against TCU and made the most memorable night at the Rock I've ever seen. 40-28 win Conference USA, and the goalposts come down. And on top of that, you hit on something. Your grandfather's passing. I mean, you guys were tight. I mean, I've read about it. Did that make it a little bit extra special? No, he's probably looking down, smiling.
I did, man. And just the things that kind of transpired through that night, the corners flipping, then we come back and, hit a slant to Antoine Currington. I threw it between 2 guys and couldn't put it any better on a hip, and it kind of just stuck in there and was scored. It was just a lot of moments like that. I was like, all right, I feel you. It's almost like he was sitting on the goalpost just watching the game. And, of course, every year, he was like, are we going to beat TCU this year? We're going to beat TCU this year. So just kind of how it all worked out, and just, of course, a story of a lifetime. I'll never forget that moment. And, of course, never forget him coming to the games.
Oh, yeah. What an iconic moment at the Rock. I mean, I've watched that TCU highlights game so many times at this point, man. Just get in a better mood some days. But congrats on that win, still 20 years later or so. But You guys get to the Liberty Bowl, your conference champs, basically the gold standard at that time for Southern Miss. How'd that feel heading to that Liberty Bowl against a tough Utah team for sure?
Man, it was good. You know, we ended up winning the conference championship there at East Carolina. Of course, getting named to go to the Liberty Bowl. That was a huge moment. But, man, them Utah boys, they were there. They were there. And, of course, they were bringing a blitz that, you know, we couldn't pick up. They were kind of running 2-3 techniques, kind of snatch for guards, and then they do a middle X with the linebackers. All right, well, we may get one of those, and then you got the other linebacker coming through. Then they added the safety. So it was a tough game. Of course, I had some anger moments in that game. You know, ended up being a guy on national television because I had just had enough at that point. You know, Bauer pulls me out. Mickey, you're up. Mickey goes in. I think the second series that he had, he was knocked out. All right, Almond, you're back in. So the Liberty Bowl, I remember those moments. Of course, you know, you remember the games you lose versus the ones you win more so. But it was, again, I mean, our fans showed up. Our fans loved the Liberty Bowl. And to let them down, it was kind of tough. But, man, that Utah team they were stout, and they were very, very good.
Yeah, I mean, you don't win the game, what have you. I mean, you brought Southern Miss back, you and the guys back to the gold standard of Southern Miss football, Liberty Bowl, and conference championships. You can't win them all, man. I lost some big ones too, so it happens. But so you're a solidified starter, though, heading to your junior year. And with that said, during this time, you know, legendary Southern Miss head football coach, one guy I think the world of, Jeff Bauer's leading you. What was it like building a relationship with Coach Bauer and getting to know him?
Well, at first it was a little rocky. You know, I was just like every freshman that comes into college. I kind of, you know, enjoyed college maybe a little bit too much those first few years. So Bauer was definitely watching me. And, of course, you know, it was the team that Bauer was, you know, kind of that he put together. Like I said, Coach Petrino my first year came in and really took me under his wings. And, of course, he kind of threw a little bit more attitude, you know, to my playing style. And then, of course, Rip Shear comes in that 03 year. We win the conference championship that year. So now we're going into year 4. The expectations are high. I'm on my second offense now that I've already learned. And, of course, feel great about it the way we ended the 03 season. But, you know, Bauer did a lot with a little. And I say a little just, you know, we look at now at all the budgets with these coaches and everything. And I think Bauer, with what he had, he did a great job of it. And, you know, really didn't know how he was running everything until I became a senior. And I think, you know, as a senior, Bauer put a lot on those seniors. You know, we don't see a lot of the things he had to do behind the scenes, but he did put a lot on our plate in terms of, hey, this is what happened. How do we want to handle it? And I think that was what he really did a good job of, was letting his seniors lead and hold everybody accountable.
Oh, absolutely. Great way to put it. I mean, just the ultimate player's coach. And with that said, you love to hear bounce back stories. And, yeah, it didn't go your way against Nebraska the prior year, but you look at the schedule heading into your next year. I mean, you've got a road game to kick off the season against Nebraska, where they haven't lost a non-conference game at home in 14 years. You guys pull off the win 21-17. Talk about bouncing back from losing to Nebraska the prior year. I mean, you do it in their turf. How'd that feel, beating Nebraska back when they were the big red machine?
Man, you know, that was, in terms of the venues, you know, you have Alabama venue there at what is it, Bryant-Denny, and of course the Alabama fans. But, you know, I got a chance as my freshman year to go up to Penn State and see that, you know, that white crowd, and of course Nebraska. I mean, middle of nowhere, and just, you know, growing up now, like I said, we may have 4 or 5 channels, but you knew who Nebraska was. And, man, going in there and that tradition and just those fans, you know, and of course, they have the knowledge, right? So we're going up and making checks, and they just get louder. The fans get louder and louder. Now I have a lineman looking back at me like, what are you saying? You know, what are you checking to? And of course, I'm like, you know, solid, max protect. Well, they're bringing the house, and everyone just doesn't have a clue. But, you know, we had a rough start there at the beginning. Of course, defense, of course, pulled us through that one. You had Nathan Stewart, who picked 6 back to the house. And then we had some big plays. You know, coming off a naked bootleg, we typically want to hit that little flat route or the over route. Well, again, you know, see a safety sitting there flat-footed. Marvin's behind him, and then there we go, you know, easy touchdown. And like I said, our defense kept us in that one, and that was an awesome win. And the best thing about those fans, not only did we beat Nebraska, but they were like clapping and cheering for us, like, okay, we respect football, and that was a good game. So that was awesome.
Oh, yeah, one of the best fan bases as far as the whole picture of Nebraska. And I've heard that so many times when they cheered you guys off from what a gritty, awesome performance pulling out that win, a place they had lost the non-conference game in 14 years. So you got 2 huge wins under your belt, man. Top 10 TCU and now Nebraska on the road, man. What else are you going to do? But the offense is flowing along. You got a game against East Carolina at the Rock where you guys dropped 51 points. What's it feel like when you're flowing, the offense is flowing, and you drop 50-plus on the Pirates?
Man, it's a good feeling. It is a great feeling knowing that it's, one of the conference foes at that time. Oh, man, it's just when you're hitting on all cylinders, offensive and defensively, and, of course, your special teams, it's just like, okay, this is what all the hard work's for. These are all the spring trainings that we did, all the up downs, the perfect sprints, the old, I'm sure you were there with the old weight room and the old gym, with no air conditioner, and you're out there full hoodies doing up downs. And it all kind of came to fruition, and just to see everybody work together, that's what it's all about.
If you want to break the rock, you need to make yourself indestructible. If you want to play between the hedges, you need to work out there, up there, down there, everywhere. If you want to reach the win bar, you need to lose sleep, lose count. You need to play every game like you got nothing to lose.
Oh, yeah. Southern Miss work ethic's a little unique, if you ask me, some of the stuff we used to do to get better, right? So, but hey, man, interesting thing that season, too, looking back, it's got such a story to tell. So you were supposed to play California, top 10 California, early in the year. Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback for Cal. Hurricane moved the game to the last game of the season. So all of a sudden, you're hosting number 4 Cal at the Rock. Aaron Rodgers, knowing who that is now at this point, this career he had at the Rock. And I've heard those Cal players, I read it several times, where they said that's the loudest place they had played in that year. And that's the Rock when it's rocking. So talk about that night. I know we didn't get the win, but looking back at it, man, a top 5 opponent, that was a huge game.
It was. And, of course, I don't know if Cal was kind of slipping on us, maybe if they thought, oh, we're going to go in here and beat them. They're an unranked team. Well, they soon found out what Southern Miss was all about. Of course, we played them there in 04, after the 03 season. Yeah, after the 02 season, we played them in 03. And, go there, and I'm told, like, hey, you're going to go in about the 3rd series. Well, I didn't go in until the very end of the game. We ended up getting destroyed. So I had a point to prove at that time, right? Like, okay, top 5, let's do it. And we had, I had all my receivers at that time. I had my O-line was healthy. We were a healthy team. Somehow we were a healthy team. And, those boys didn't understand what the Rock was all about. I know, we're going in to tie up the game, to kick a field goal or to kick the extra point. It gets blocked, goes back. We end up losing by 10, but it was, damn, we were almost there. And, of course, that just kept pushing us.
Heck yeah, you guys kept pushing. But looking back at that game, how cool. I mean, the career Aaron Rodgers had, you basically went toe-to-toe with Joe Montana or Steve Young or, some of these big names from the past with Aaron Rodgers at the Rock. And looking back, you almost had him. So, but got you guys to a bowl. I mean, just continuing the winning ways in the New Orleans Bowl against North Texas, where you absolutely hammer those guys in the Superdome. How was that night?
That was a fun night. Of course, the bowl games, the atmosphere around the bowl games, and you got to watch out for some of those players as you go down to Bourbon Street the week before. But we had a great time. I played well in the Dome. We played well as a team in the Dome, and of course, North Texas. We didn't play them during the season, but of course, we were Southern Miss. We expected to beat everybody, especially a team out of Texas.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Fun night in New Orleans. I hear a lot of stories that people don't remember on Bourbon Street after that game, but, that's the Southern Miss way, So, and then they see – what's that?
So I was going to say, a lot of the coaches, of course, are sitting in the, the lobby when you're coming back into the hotel to see who's making it for curfew. Well, I think the thing was, all right, who's going to come back with the most hot dogs? The chili hot dogs off the thing. I think I rolled in with like 3 of them. But no, there's just some fun stories down there, and of course, some you don't want to share. But yeah, there were some really, really fun.
That's so funny you say that. I'm born and raised in New Orleans, and I'm sorry, it's the best food in the world if you ask me. But every now and then in New Orleans, I got to get a Lucky Dog. The hot dog stand. I mean, dude, you could get this fancy, great chef food here and there, but man, there's nothing like a Lucky Dog when you're in the mood for a Lucky Dog in New Orleans.
Absolutely, covered in chili, and of course, at that point, I don't think it. 2 a.m. doesn't really matter what you eat, but you remember that Lucky Dog.
Well, man, Dustin, you made so many memories so far. I mean, wins at Nebraska, beating TCU at the Rock. I mean, a bowl win. Now heading your senior year, I mean, you're the guy. You made a big name for yourself, and you make a huge name for yourself by the time you're done with your senior year. Just so I don't mess the stats up. This season, your senior year, you wound up setting a school record for total offense with 2,762 yards. And you set the school record for completions in 216 completions. Man, did you know you were set up for a big year, that this is going to be big heading into the season?
No. And that was something that I was never a numbers guy. I was never a stats guy, right? Like the only thing that I cared about was did we win or did we lose? And I never really was a stat guy. I finally got into my career where throw the ball away. Who cares? Let's not, and of course with the defense we had and Bauer's kind of philosophy, let's control the ball. Our defense is going to keep us in the game. We're going to win it. So I really didn't care about that. At the end of the day, I just wanted to win, and that was it. What was my win-loss record, and that was something I always followed. And of course, at the end of my senior career, like, well, you're doing this, you're doing that. Going into this game, man, I really don't care. I just want to win the football game.
Well, one of the cool things that everybody was seeing was we had a serious offense at this point with numbers you're putting up. And there was one game at the Rock where you dropped 50 again against Central Florida, I think 52-31. Another game, I mean, when the offense is clicking, I mean, dropping 50, man.
That was a good game. I think I had 5 touchdowns past that game and then rushed for another one. And that at that point, I finally got to look to the sideline, and there was one play I wanted to run. We just kind of ran kind of like a little out to the boundary with the go on the sideline, and the corner set on that out route. Well, of course, I looked back. I was like, all right, I got to come back to this. Looked at Bauer. I was like, let's run it again. And he just kind of gave me this one, like, go ahead. And I was like, all right. Well, of course, same thing. Corner sits there. We run by and hit it for a touchdown. I'm like, all right, man. So now they're starting to get a little faith in me. Now they're starting to believe in me a little bit more. But I remember that game, and it was just like, okay, here we are. And, everything hit well on that game. And, of course, after coming off that Nebraska game, it was just another big win, on that field. And, again, another Florida team didn't offer me.
Oh, yeah, you've proven it against Florida, man. I love that when you show them, should offer me, bud. Sorry, I got to drop 50 on you. I just got to. That's what I did. I love it. Man,
exactly.
Before we get into your last game, I mean, you're just having a memorable career at Southern Miss that people still talk about to this day. Before we get into the last game against Tulane, the battle for the bell at the Rock senior day, what are some other senior year moments you remember most?
So I remember this vividly. I definitely remember senior year, okay? My entire career, other than my redshirt year, my entire career, it never rained. Again, I'm a kid that came from Florida where it rained pretty much every night or every day. And it never rained on me until my senior year of my senior day against Tulane.
Well, let's get to Tulane with the rain. Then you got to be kidding me, man.
So of course, it's raining there, and of course, I believe we destroyed them again that year. That was I as a starter, I always had Tulane's number. I remember, earlier in my career, we ran a fake field goal, and I looked back to the sideline, looking at Bauer. I was like, "You sure you want to do this?" And of course, he gave me one of these again. And we run and hit a touchdown, beat Tulane. Of my senior year, of course, the hurricanes that came through. We, of course, in the middle of camp, go up to Memphis. So we're doing our 2-a-days at Memphis. That first game versus Cal was canceled. So all right, well, Cal's canceled. Now we're going to come down on the way back home. We're going to stop in Tuscaloosa and play Alabama. Oh, great home opener. We get them. We kind of lose that one out a little bit. I know we were necking that there for a while. I believe that was the game. Pro throw caught it on the guy's back. Then we tried to play Houston again. I know Houston was canceled for another hurricane that came in that year. So it was just a lot of unknown really going into our senior year. But again, that was probably one of the tightest teams. Not one of the better teams that Southern Miss had, but one of the tighter teams because of what we had to go through that year.
And yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I should have brought it up earlier. Heading into your senior year, Hurricane Katrina ravaged the Gulf Coast, the Gulf of Mexico area, Gulf Coast. And I mean, how was that heading the season, getting your mind right with something that just happened that was kind of never before seen?
It was extremely tough. You know, we had a bunch of guys that were from South Louisiana. So a lot of guys that had lost pretty much everything they had. You know, here they are on the road. You know, we're up in Memphis at this time. They don't know what's going on with their family, what's going on with their home, if their families even, you know, made it. And, of course, then you have the devastation there in South Mississippi. You know, you got Biloxi that was pretty much ground zero. And, of course, everything that came through. And I think 3 or 4 days after Katrina had gone through, we're loading up on buses and going to Memphis. And, you know, of course, we come back with Tuscaloosa, and Coach Bowers got us all together in a team meeting. And one by one, we kind of all got up in the front of the room and said what we were playing for, who we're playing for. Well, at that time, I mean, like I said, we're playing with a guy that, you know, I've known for 4 years now. I've never met his family, but here he is struggling, not even knowing if his family's even there. So, you know, we really came together as a team, and, you know, we went and played lights out that night against Alabama. Of course, we didn't win. But, you know, just the unity in the team and going through that season at that point, needless that we know what would come up after that. But, you know, as a team, that was probably one of the stronger teams we had. Not one of the better teams, but one of the stronger teams, probably emotionally and, you know, kind of team-oriented.
Yeah, to tell your story right, I'm glad we talked about Katrina because that's a big part, obviously, that 05 season and building bonds and building, you know, just bonds you'll have for life with some of these guys that were your teammates. But to backtrack again back to senior day, man, you know, you guys beat Tulane, win the battle for the bell and smash those guys. But it was your last day to play at the Rock. Was it bittersweet? Everything you had done, looking at that place for one last time, put on the black and gold.
It was bittersweet. But again, you know, there was just so much going on. I really didn't kind of take in the moment probably more like I should have. You know, there was a time, you know, back to what we were talking about earlier when, you know, Jeff Kelly got up his senior year. And, of course, you know, the seniors get up and they tell their stories, right, like how they want to be remembered, how they're leaving. And I just remember Jeff Kelly getting up there and he's like, look, I remember like it was yesterday sitting in here as a freshman watching the seniors give their, you know, their stories and what they've gone through. And they always said, don't take it for granted. It's going to fly by. And I just remember Jeff's speech. And I remember coming into my mind that day, it was like, it's going to fly by. And, of course, here I was my senior year playing Tulane. And yeah, it was just, oh, man, it was, of course, a sad moment. But, God, the things we did in the Rock was just awesome.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, one big thing you always got is the most iconic moment in Rock history with the goalpost coming down against TCU, man. So that you just a winner your entire career there, no losing seasons, conference championships, bowl games, and your last game is a bowl game. And Katrina kind of made an interesting scenario because it's the New Orleans Bowl, but you couldn't play in New Orleans. Want to play in this game in Lafayette at Cajun Field in the New Orleans Bowl against Arkansas State. So how was that day when you guys getting a big win, closing your career the right way and the right way to put a stamp on Dustin Almond's career?
Well, leading up into that, you know, of course, that was one of the first bowl games every year was that New Orleans Bowl at that time. I don't know if the dates have changed, but a lot of us were stuck in study hall. You know, we went down there, I think, 3 days prior to the game. And, of course, here we are with Miss Tracy, Miss Stacy, and Christy, and we're all in study hall getting ready for our finals, you know. And I remember I think it was accounting 300. I had my final the very next day. So it's just things that, you know, all right, we got our finals, which, again, you know, I went to school to play football. I really wasn't a Jeff Kelly.
I feel your pain. You know, I was there to hit people more or less, but on the fields. I feel
exactly. So, but you know, that was a fun game. Of course, Arkansas State. You know, I think at that point, well, they were the conference champs at that time. So it was a good ending. You know, and a good thing about that. You know, kind of a small thing about playing in that stadium. You know, my dad played on that field. You know, that was one of my last games that I played on that field. My nephew at Northwestern, that was one of the first touchdown passes he had was on that field. And, of course, now my nephew is there playing for ULL on that field. So it was just, you know, you kind of step back and look at it and how it's all kind of come around full circle. And, you know, I remember that game very vividly. And, of course, now to go back and watch my nephew play on it, man, it's just it's surreal.
Wow, what a perfect ending to a story right there with all the Cajun ties, man. But once again, by the time you're done, you finish there at that point, you're second all time in passing yards, second all time in touchdowns, and just talk about hanging your hat on a career. Dustin Almond can hang his hat on his career, but you got the talent to play pro ball, brother, and you had a shot, undrafted free agent with the Cleveland Browns, and then 6 years playing arena ball. But first up, playing with the Browns, being there for a minute. How was that, man, having an NFL shot?
It's what they say. You go in there and, it's like learning Mandarin your first day. You got 3 pages of protections. You're changing your terminology, coming in with Petrino. It was a number system. Then Rip Shear comes in. Now it's more of like a word, and protections. So it was a lot different than what I had imagined. And of course, you're going to take away somebody's check, and they're not going to have it. There was a lot of stories, first day I walk in, one of the guys is like, "Oh, you must be the kicker." And I'm like, damn, all right, this is how this is going to go. So it was, I enjoyed it, man. It was just more of a business. We play junior high and high school football, and we feel like it's easy. We're such great athletes, throw to the open guys. All right, now you get to college. Now you're going against a more, defined blitz, and they're hiding it a lot more. Now you get to college, and it is just, I think Jeff said it. Everybody is the same speed. Your windows get smaller, and there's just so much more that goes into the mental game of it on calling the plays. Why? I have no clue why they make it harder in the NFL. I mean, you would think that you could say one word and everybody would know what's going on, but I enjoyed it. I was extremely disappointed. I know I went through a few months of just like a deep depression. You go to that, you think that you're going to play football forever, and then somebody tells you you're not good enough, and so I kind of went through that depression for a few months or so. And then the next thing I'm playing in the arena ball and loving that.
Yeah. You're obviously loving that because, like I said, early to start this interview, you got a linebacker mentality playing quarterback, and you would instead of getting slammed into the floor every now and then in the grass, you get slammed into walls. Did the glutton for punishment a little bit in you, kind of like that, man? Is this arena vibe?
Yeah, I mean, hey, I got another chance to throw the football, and the walls weren't as bad. The thing that was so bad, it was that AstroTurf, the old school AstroTurf that you're getting slammed to, and your shoulders. My shoulders took a beating, but man, it was fun. It was 70 degrees all the time. You didn't have to worry about the wind, and the best thing about Arena League is in the spring, so it didn't affect my hunting. So that was probably the best part of it, and I got to play golf after practice. So, it all worked out.
Oh, heck yeah, man. You had a great run at arena ball, 6 years. And, like I said, just one heck of a football career. So hopefully you stand with your chest up, proud, and you got a trophy back there, which to me, getting back on Southern Miss stuff, is the ultimate trophy that a football player at Southern Miss can get. You can get All-American, you get this. That's the Heart of the Eagle Award. That award is for the guy who represents everything Southern Miss the best. What did that mean, getting that trophy you got back there?
Man, it was just almost noticing what I did there the last 5 years. Come in red shirt, and then the next 4 years we go to a bowl games. We're going from the trailers to now the suites to now the new facility. Now we're going to the suites in the stadium. So it's like all this is coming through, and you find, it's like, all right, this guy finally is being noticed for what he's done. Now again, like I said, it started off rough, but I felt like I really truly bled that black and gold, and I just love the fact that the coaches noticed it, and I know they noticed it because they were the ones pushing my ass every day, which thank God. But man, it's in my office now. Thank God I finally have an office because that's where it's at, and my staff will come in and some visitors will be like, "What's that?" And I get a chance to tell them, "Well, that's one badass reward right there." And hey, shed some light on yours now.
I got one too. 97, I got the Heart of the Eagle Award. So congratulations, brother, because that's more than a trophy you got back there. So it means everything, Southern Miss. So super proud of you getting that, man. Like I said, this guy's tough, Dustin Almond. Just look at that trophy. You don't believe it. So, but hey, man, life after football, after an incredible football career. I mean, where'd that take you after football?
So after I left, I got hurt. So my third day in camp with the Desperados, which was the Vigilantes at the time, coming off the Desperados. So I finally got my chance in AF1. Third day of camp, reading to the left, backed out, stepped up, ruptured my Achilles tendon. So ruptured my Achilles. So then not even the next day, I now get a head coaching job down at Corpus Christi to run their arena team. I do that. I get out of it. I go into coaching and teaching there in Lakeside, which is outside of Bossier City. It's Mendon, little school right there in Mendon. And I loved it, man. I loved working with the kids. I loved the staff and just the small town. Like I love the country, and I just a lot of great kids. So I got to kind of work with the kids that maybe headed down the wrong path. I got to work with them. And then, after that year, I went up to Philly, finished my career, and then I came back, and it's like, all right, the real world. I met my wife now at the time. I was coaching, teaching. Now we moved up to Green Bay, Wisconsin, of all places, back to Wisconsin. And I was selling dental supplies there, wanted to get into kind of the sales industry. And then we moved down to New Orleans. Well, unemployed in New Orleans for 3 or 4 months. The next thing you know, I'm selling beer for Budweiser. Easy gig. I can do that. And then Mark Bonice, he was a coach down there, Brother Martin at the time. And he got me on that staff. And a kid, again, got to work with kids, kind of, got to show them through my eyes, what the mistakes I made and how I correct them. But man, after that, I got into selling heavy equipment, and the biggest blessing what I'm doing right now is I'm running the nursing home as a nursing home administrator, and I get to run my own team with my administrative staff, and I get to take care of people, and I absolutely love that. But that's really it. I've been married now 6 years. I got 2 beautiful little girls, Charlie and Avery. They're as mean as their mama and as tough as their daddy. So it's been fun. We started soccer last week, but it's man, I've just been blessed, just the journey that I've been on. And, the thing that, I lost my grandmother. As I lost my grandmother, I met my wife now. And, I feel like I lost an angel at that time. And here's another one walking in my life. And ever since then, it's been a true blessing.
No, great family update right there, and great stories right there. So anybody wondering about Dustin, what he's up to after football. But one thing everybody knew you were doing for a couple of years, man. You were calling games at The Rock for 2 years on ESPN Plus with my guy and our guy, Jason Baker. How was that? Instead of being a signal caller at The Rock, you're actually calling games at The Rock on TV.
Well, I tell you what, going back to, you said I was second on all time and all that. Well, that now here I come second in that, which kind of wasn't too happy about. I hate being second on anything. Of course, Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last. So, but now I am coming in following you, right? I mean, you set the bar high. Here I am coming in following you up. So, I enjoyed it, man. Jason Baker, that guy's a stand-up guy. He's just a first-class Southern Miss fan, Southern Miss graduate. And, it was fun, man. I wish I was still doing it. Of course, my nephew playing at ULL, I had to get there and get with the family and start doing that. But to see it up there and see it from a different angle, and of course, the little ESPN games we did have back in the day that are still on VHS, you get to go back and hear those guys, the negative things you were saying, and of course, upset with. Well, now I'm not going to be that person, right? So I learned a lot, man. I loved it and got to get back in the program. Of course, get to visit with Coach Hall, which I am a huge fan of. That guy is the definition of Southern Miss. He didn't play there. Golly, man, you would think he definitely came up with that black and gold, and I'm excited of what he's doing now. You talk to Coach Hall, and we played in this golf tournament every year, but you go and you talk to the players, and he will tell you where they're from, what high school they went to, who their head coach is. And I'm like, this guy is truly all in this program, and it just makes you feel good about being a Southern Miss alumni.
Man, that is so funny you say that. Before we kind of get to a close of the show, my wife and I laugh all the time. You interview Coach Hall about one of his players. Man, he'll tell you about the barber in town that they grew up, his cousin, the coach's nephew, and why they're so talented up there, why that city loves football. That guy's memory, it is no wonder he's becoming a beloved guy. I've never seen anybody with that great of memory, man. He knows everybody on that team and every family member. And I love it. So,
hey, but that's what you want, right?
Yeah,
that's what you want as a Southern Miss fan. Of that. All right, this coach is bringing in, of course, the staff he's put around him. and then to see, Chad Williams back. I mean, that's what I like. And God, man, the things that he's doing and the things he's going to do, I'm excited for it for sure.
Heck yeah, man. But Dustin, what an honor it was to have you on my show. And to kind of close things up, what's a message the great Dustin Almond might have for the Southern Miss fans?
I kind of hear some other guys that were saying, but the best thing is just to get to the Rock. If you wanted to improve, I know Nick was saying just be part of it. Just go to the games or give back any way you can. But, be patient. Again, I think Coach Hall is that guy. He is definitely that guy. Just believe in the program, continue to give back, bring somebody to the game that's never known about Southern Miss football, but just truly take pride in wearing that black and gold and just know who you represent.
Oh, great way to put it. Great message to the fans from Dustin Almond. And so I think one thing that the fans might like as we close this show is me and a guy with a linebacker mentality who happened to play quarterback, giving everybody a big Southern Miss to the top.
To the top.
Well, that's it for another edition of Anyone, Anywhere, Anytime. And if you like this show, I'm going to ask you to do something that's absolutely free and easy to do. And that's just help spread the word of the show. It's free. That's all I'm asking. And if you want to hit the subscribe button too, obviously, please do that. But, well, until next time, as always, it's Southern Miss to the top.